Hi everyone, I'm Dr. John DeLynn. Welcome to Understanding Mormonism. Today we're going to be answering the question, how many wives did Joseph Smith have? And before we begin, you should know, everything in this presentation is now acknowledged by the LDS Church. So you don't have to worry for a second that you're getting any of this information from anti-Mormon sources. But before we answer the question, how many wives did Joseph Smith have? We first need to answer the question, did Joseph Smith practice polygamy? And the answer is yes. On the LDS Church's own website, there's an essay called Plural Marriage in Kirtland and Nauvoo. And in that essay, it reads, after receiving a revelation commanding him to practice plural marriage, Joseph Smith married multiple wives and introduced the practice to his close associates. So, yes, Joseph Smith practiced polygamy. Now for the main question, how many wives did Joseph Smith have? Well, the answer is a little bit complicated. The short answer is, there were so many wives that we're not totally sure. It's a tiny bit awkward, but that's the truth. One really cool site entitled wivesofjosephsmith.org puts the number around 34. Check out that site to see the full list. The LDS Church's own website reads, careful estimates put the number between 30 and 40. The New York Times website says up to 40. So if somebody asks you, how many wives did Joseph Smith have? You can say somewhere between 34 and 40, maybe 3 dozen, give or take a few, 5 or 10, something like that. Next question. What do we know about Joseph Smith's wives? If you check out this really cool site called MormonInfographics.com, it provides a really cool graphic going into detail on Joseph Smith's wives. It's called The Many Wives of Joseph Smith. And in that graphic, we learned something really interesting. We learned that at least 7 of Joseph Smith's wives were under the age of 18. A couple were 17, some were 16, one was 15, and one was 14 years old. That's kind of young. Yes, you heard me right. At least one of Joseph Smith's wives was 14 years old. Here is a graphical representation of what she looked like. Her name was Helen Mar Kimball, daughter of Heber C. Kimball. 14 years old. The next thing that we learned from this cool graphic is Joseph Smith married at least 3 sister pairs. This included Presendia and Zina Huntington, Eliza and Emily Partridge, and Sarah and Maria Lawrence. Sisters. 3 sister pairs. The next thing we learn is that Joseph Smith married at least 1 mother-daughter pair, Patty Bartlett Sessions and Sylvia Porter Sessions Lyon, mother-daughter pair. The next thing we learn is that at least 11 of Joseph Smith's wives were married to other men, married to other men's wives. This practice of marrying other men's wives is called polyandry. Next question. Did Joseph Smith have sex with his wives? There is no doubt about the answer to this question. Let me show you. On this wonderful website called Joseph Smith's Polygamy, the wonderful Brian and Laura Hales list all of the evidences of Joseph Smith's sexual relations. And remember, Brian and Laura Hales are active, devout, committed members of the Mormon Church, and Brian even sings for the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Here are some of the examples of the evidences of Joseph Smith's sexual relations with his wives. Regarding Fanny Alger, his second wife, we learn that several accounts record that Emma Smith witnessed Joseph Smith and Fanny Alger together. One source asserts that Fanny Alger became pregnant. What this leaves off is that Oliver Cowdery, one of the 3 witnesses to the Book of Mormon and co-president of the LDS Church, confronted Joseph Smith for having what Oliver Cowdery called a dirty, nasty affair. So we're pretty sure Joseph Smith had sex with Fanny Alger. Next wife. When Joseph Bates Noble, Louisa Beeman's brother-in-law, was asked, where did they, Joseph Smith and plural wife Louisa Beeman, sleep together? Louisa's brother responded, right straight across the river at my house they slept together. When Emily Partridge was under oath in a deposition, Emily was asked, do you make the declaration that you ever slept with him in the same bed, him meaning Joseph? To which Emily Partridge answered, yes, sir. Concerning Emily's sister Eliza, Benjamin F. Johnson wrote in 1903, the first plural wife brought to my house with whom the prophet stayed was Eliza Partridge. This means that Joseph Smith had sex with at least one of the sister pairs, that being Emily and Eliza Partridge. Regarding Almera Johnson, Benjamin Johnson affirmed his sister Almera experienced sexual relations with the prophet, quote, he, Joseph Smith, was at my house where he occupied my sister Almera's room and bed. So somehow Joseph was able to get the brothers to be okay with him sleeping with their sisters. Don't know how he did that. With Sylvia Sessions. In a 1915 statement, Josephine Lyon declared that her mother, Sylvia Sessions, told her in 1882 that she, Josephine, was Joseph Smith's daughter. Clearly the mom had had sex with Joseph, or she wouldn't have told her daughter that she was Joseph's daughter. Regarding Maria Lawrence, William Law, who was in the first president presidency with Joseph Smith towards the end of Joseph Smith's life, charged Joseph Smith in a Carthage court with, quote, living in an open state of adultery with Maria Lawrence. So that's the second first presidency member of the LDS Church who accused Joseph of having sex with women that weren't his wife. Oliver Cowdery, William Law. That's two. First presidency members. Two. Finally, Melissa Lott, in an 1893 interview, was asked if she was the prophet's wife in very deed, to which she answered yes. So, just to conclude today's presentation, just so you don't forget, make sure you remember, we're going to have a quick pop quiz. You ready? Here goes. Question number 1. Did Joseph Smith practice polygamy? The answer is yes. Joseph Smith practiced polygamy. The LDS Church admits it fully. 100%. Yes. Joseph Smith was a polygamist. Next question. How many wives did Joseph Smith have? 2 answers are acceptable. Answer number 1, probably at least 34. Answer number 2, there were so many that we're not totally sure. Next question. Did Joseph Smith marry other men's wives? Answer, 100% yes. Joseph Smith married other men's wives. Final question. Did Joseph Smith have sex with his wives? The answer is 100% yes. Joseph Smith had sex with his polygamous wives. Finally, if you want to learn more about Joseph Smith's polygamy, there's some excellent resources. The best book I know of on this topic is Todd Compton's book called In Sacred Loneliness. You can also check out Mormon Stories podcast, my podcast, at mormonstories.org, where we talk a lot about polygamy. And finally, Lindsay Hansen Park has an amazing podcast called Year of Polygamy that goes into depth in each of Joseph Smith's plural wives and a whole lot more. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please subscribe to this channel. Please click the bell to be alerted for future episodes. Please share this with as many people as possible. Please email us at understandmormonism@gmail.com with your ideas for episodes. And please share this everywhere you can. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. Everybody should know this about Joseph Smith, whether in or out of the church, whether young or old. It's called informed consent. Thanks, everybody. Take care. See you next time on Understanding Mormonism. I'm Dr. John DeLynn. Bye-bye.